Hey, good morning. Chris here with Atlantic Drain. It's fall of 2019. We're here in Columbus, Ohio, and you can see that the colors of fall are at their peak. We're headed up to Worthington, Ohio this morning, where we will be installing a new drain tile, cutting the sidewalk, core drilling a curb, and we're going to install a discharge line on a dry well.
The main reason why we're doing this install is because before we came out here, I discovered that these pipes were going into a dry well right here in the low spot of the yard. Both downspouts here were going to this dry well into 6-inch perforated pipe and into gravel, as well as this spout here on the corner. Now, this thing saturates and just fills up, and water has no place to go. With this solid pipe, we're going to move that water on out to the street from all the downspouts. And since water is collecting here in the low spot, as this saturates, water will get into our solid line and be moved on out to the street. So I just really had to open it all up here to find out just what was going on. But I believe it to be under control now, and we can maintain a good fall away from the house on out to the street. Today's project, we must cut the sidewalk out by the curb versus tunneling the sidewalk. This is not your typical arrangement for a sidewalk out by the street. Normally there's a area of grass between the curb and the sidewalk. I like to make our sidewalk cuts 6 inches wide, and I always use a relief line, if available, on the sidewalk for the first cut. Take the time to go through the entire depth of the sidewalk before using a spud bar to remove the pieces of concrete. So that's looking real good. About to turn the water off, just taking a quick break before I go through it one more time. Make sure it's down all the way 4 inches. Using a pry bar, just crack a line, and work that out. And just work that piece of concrete out. It's very easy. You don't have to use a jackhammer. As long as you went all the way through with your concrete saw, those come right out of there. Begin your hookup of the downspout to drain using proper adapters, proper elbows, and glue for best system integrity. You want to keep that water inside the pipe. Gluing the fittings up by the house helps to move all that water away from the corners and foundation walls. When you're installing new pipe, you always want to be sure that the bell faces towards the house. That way water... Remember, you're trying to keep all the water inside of the pipe, as so no roots are looking for water. If water's escaping from your pipe, roots are going to find it inside of the pipe. Whenever possible, use a nice long piece of pipe when you're up here by shrubs. The fewer breaks you have in your line, the less infiltration you'll have in the future of roots. Generous portion of glue on all your fittings that are up by the house. I like to put the lettering face up, just so you know that you how much you've pushed that pipe into the fitting. And I got a rough bubble of what's going on in the trench. I have to keep this pipe up as high as I can. It's got a long way to go out to the street. Here I've got about, I don't know, I'm going to say a quarter bubble downhill flow. That's great. Always try to achieve some type of downhill bubble for each section of pipe if possible. Minimal, just make it flat. Flat's okay, but downhill flow's always best. Depending on how much fall you have to the street, you really have to be careful about that so that you don't have any bellies in the pipe. No roots will get into that pipe as long as you have downhill flow. If you got a belly in the pipe, roots look for water. Just like a divining rod, roots look for water. Alright, it's starting to shape up here. Really had to cut through grade to get downhill flow on this pipe. This is much deeper than you want to have to install it, but gotta have it go downhill. Normally it's like a shovel deep. And another little pro tip if you're using solid pipe like I do. Here there's a slight bend in the pipe, and articulating this is a challenge, but always put screws in here. You don't have to, but I do, just so that this pipe will not come apart. These screws are 1/2 inch long, and they're number 8, 1/4 inch drive, and the screw just, barely goes into the polyethylene pipe. It goes through the coupling, through the polyethylene pipe, and just kind of pierces the far side of this pipe. So it's not going to do any type of integrity problem for it. This is looking real good. There's a lot going on this installation. Out here at the street, not only did we cut the sidewalk, but we've also core drilled the curb. We need a place for that water to discharge. You know, it's kind of amazing just how much water is collected and discharged at the curb from every home in the city. A quick example, a 1,000 square foot roof will yield 623 gallons of water for every 1 inch of rain that falls. Core drilling the curb with the setup I have takes about 20 to 25 minutes. There's a variety of core drill bits that can be used. Carbide tipped or diamond tipped are the industry standards. That looks really good. Real sweet. 3.5 inches is your core drill size at the curb. Now, from any drain tile installation you do, you're going to have excess of dirt. Basically, you're taking out at least the diameter of the pipe all the way down your trench, and any excess that you have when you put it back, you put into a barrel and look for low spots around the foundation walls. Here I see a little spot for some right here in front of this window well, and on this side of the window well, almost all the way over here to the front porch. Just rake that stuff back and install your dirt right there, grade it out, and it's going to help with rainwater drainage. Now this little tool here, this is a gem. Every ditch witch operator wishes they had one of these. A pusher. Push that dirt back on top of the trench. I do a lot of drain tile installation, and if I dug them all by hand, I could not physically do this work. So I have the Ditch Witch 1820 to dig long trenches for installation of pipe, and I use this homemade steer head to push all the soil back into the trench. And you've probably noticed I put down plastic on one side of the trench and place all the soil on top of that plastic. This makes a much easier cleanup, and if you don't have a pusher like me, using plastic reduce your cover and cleanup time in half. And of course, we finish out the sidewalk work with a concrete patch. Depending on how wide the sidewalk is, it's going to kind of dictate how much concrete you're going to need. This one took about 60 pounds. I like using 40-pound bags of concrete. They're a little easier to move around. And depending on where you are in the country, up north here we use Quickcrete, and down south they use Sackcrete. Either one's a very good product and works great for concrete patch. Just a water test left to do. Turn that thing on full blast. I'm going to put it in at the very furthest spout away from the street. See if it beats me out to the street. This is pretty good distance. Normally I'd say it shouldn't take any more than about 4 minutes for it to get out to the street if you've got a good line. I think this one will beat me out there in about 1.5 minutes. Moving water quickly away from foundation walls and corners is key in maintaining a dry basement. This is a good simulation of a normal rainfall. I'm able to quickly check system operations, both visually and audibly. See if we can hear it in this neck. You should be able to hear water movement clearly. Can you hear that? Like you and I talking. Water at each downspout drain. And here's something else we want to check. Is right in here. We want to see if any water is backflowing into the yard drain or the dry well. And I don't see that happening. I can hear the water running, but no backup here in the swell, in the dry swell. Remember, this is the low spot of the yard, and water flows to this spot. It's gravel filled in the area, and as the water or the ground gets saturated, as the catch basin fills, the water level rises to the height of our pipe and discharges into the solid line going out to the street. This is great. No water backflowing that way. That means we've got good flow downhill. Let's go see if it's out to the street yet. Just need to put some grass seed down on this. I used some of the excess dirt there to fill a low spot in here in the front yard. Look at that. I mean, it couldn't have been more than a minute or so. The water's just now starting to come out at the street. That flow is going to increase. Perfect. This is a great installation. I'm Chris with Atlantic Drain, reminding you it's easy once you know how.